So something's shifting in North Korea. For the first time in, well, decades, it looks like they have a totally new strategy. They're making new friends, new enemies, and you know what that means? They could be about to stir up a whole new kind of trouble for the rest of us. Let's get into it.
And look, that's not just some clickbait headline. That warning comes from two experts, Robert Carlin and Siegfried Hecker, who are about as respected as they come. These guys have actually been to North Korea, and they're saying, hey, pay attention. This time it's different. What we're seeing isn't just the same old North Korean provocation we've all learned to ignore.
Okay, so how did we even get here? I mean, for most of us, North Korea's behavior follows this super predictable, almost theatrical script, right? When Kim Jong-un recently blew up that huge arch that symbolized reunification with the South, the world pretty much just collectively rolled its eyes.
We all see it as just another childish tantrum. It's like, oh, here he goes again. The standard thinking is that Kim Jong-un is basically a master manipulator, like a kid who knows exactly which buttons to push with his parents. He throws a fit, makes a ton of noise, and then just waits for the world to give him what he wants. Attention, aid, you name it, just to make him quiet down.
And yeah, for years, that playbook has been pretty simple. It's a three-step dance. Step 1, escalate. Blow something up, launch a missile, do something dramatic. Step 2, right when you think things are about to boil over, they offer to talk. And step 3, they get something out of it. Concessions, food aid, sanctions relief, all for just stopping the bad behavior and going back to normal. It's been the same rinse and repeat cycle forever.
And you can guess what happens after a while, right? Because of this endless cycle, North Korea has become the ultimate boy who cried wolf. We've all jumped at the alarm so many times, only to feel kind of stupid afterward, that we've just started tuning them out. Honestly, our attention has moved on. We're more worried about China, Russia, and the Middle East.
But what if we're wrong? I mean, that's the big question here, isn't it? What if that old playbook we all know by heart is dangerously out of date? What if we were right all those other times, but this time things have fundamentally changed? So that brings us to a totally different way of looking at Kim Jong-un's actions. An interpretation that suggests his goals were way, way more ambitious than just keeping his regime alive. For a while, it seems his grand strategy was actually a quest for something else entirely. For North Korea to become a normal country. Now, to get this, you really have to step into his shoes and see what shaped his worldview. Think about it. In 2011, right before he takes power, he watches Muammar Gaddafi get dragged through the streets and killed. And what had Gaddafi done just a few years earlier? He'd given up his nuclear weapons program. For Kim, the lesson couldn't have been clearer. Nukes equals survival, period. So what does he do? He goes all in, testing more missiles in just a few years than his father and grandfather did combined. And this, right here, gets to the absolute heart of his big strategy. He wasn't building all these weapons just to survive or to scare South Korea. He truly seemed to believe that having a credible nuclear deterrent would force the world, and especially the US, to finally treat him like an adult. To see North Korea as a real, legitimate country that you have to take seriously, even if you absolutely hate everything it stands for. But there was a fundamental problem with his plan. A massive one. He was just completely, almost comically wrong. Because the United States was never, ever going to accept a nuclear North Korea. For every single US administration from both parties, preventing that was the one line in the sand they would not cross. It was completely non-negotiable. And you can boil this entire failure down to one single number: 3. 3 failed attempts. Kim Jong-un had 3 summits, 3 chances to make a deal with a US president who prided himself on making deals. And all 3 of them collapsed. Why? Because the one thing Washington absolutely had to have, complete denuclearization, was the one thing Pyongyang was never, ever going to give up. For Washington, this was a setback, a disappointment. But for North Korea, it was absolutely devastating. Think about it. After all that work, after proving he could build a missile that could hit the US mainland, Kim couldn't even get America's sustained attention, let alone its respect. The world just moved on. North Korea went from being this scary, threatening pariah to just irrelevant, a global afterthought.
Okay, so you might be thinking, wait a minute, why did he even care so much about a deal with the West? Aren't China and Russia his big allies? Well, that question gets us right into a very common but very wrong assumption, the myth of this great friendship.
We have this image, right, of North Korea, China, and Russia as this band of socialist brothers, an axis of evil, united against the West. But the reality? Oh, it's so much messier. The truth is, their relationship has always been built on deep mistrust and totally different goals. It's not about friendship, it's 100% transactional.
And I mean, just look at the history. It's full of tension. Kim's own grandfather, Kim Il-sung, purged officials who were too cozy with China or the Soviets. During the Cold War, North Korea was a master at playing China and the USSR against each other. Then, the Soviet Union collapses, and poof, their support is gone. Then China goes and establishes relations with South Korea, which in Pyongyang's eyes was a total betrayal. And get this, in 2017, both China and Russia voted for the toughest sanctions ever against North Korea at the UN. Some friends, huh? And what all this really shows is that their goals are completely at odds. See, North Korea wants to be strong and independent. But for China and Russia, their ideal North Korea is weak and dependent, a buffer state that's kept on permanent life support, just stable enough to not collapse, and to keep US troops away from their borders. Okay, so that brings us to where we are right now. Kim's grand plan to become a normal country by dealing with the West. Total failure. So he had to pivot. And as it turns out, the way the world was changing gave him a brand new and maybe much more dangerous opportunity. So as that one door with the US slammed shut, two new ones creaked open. First, you have Russia's invasion of Ukraine, which turned them into a global outcast, desperate for any ally they could find. And second, you have China getting way more assertive and ideological. All of a sudden, for these two countries, a disruptive, troublemaking North Korea started to look pretty useful again. And you don't have to look far for the evidence. I mean, North Korea was one of just 5 countries that voted with Russia against the UN resolution condemning the invasion of Ukraine. They've been shipping massive amounts of artillery shells and missiles to help Russia's war effort. And what are they getting in return? Well, we know they're getting Russian help to launch their new military spy satellites. Think about this for a second. For the last 30 years, North Korea has been a major pain, even when its so-called allies were trying to keep them in check. So now, with Russia and China giving them a much longer leash, well, it's pretty clear what's likely to happen, right? Pyongyang is probably going to be on even worse behavior. Why would they show any restraint now? And this quote here just nails it. Clearly, whatever you call this, it's certainly not friendship. It isn't. This isn't some deep bond. It's a temporary transactional arrangement where they happen to need each other right now. But the quote continues, "Still, they momentarily serve each other's interests, and that alone is plenty cause for concern." And that's the bottom line. It might not be friendship, but it's still deeply worrying. So, this all leaves us with one final and pretty critical question. It seems pretty clear that North Korea's strategy has evolved. They have a new game plan, born from the ashes of the old one. The real question is, has our understanding evolved with it? Or are we still stuck in the past, seeing the same old childish tantrum and ignoring the wolf that might actually finally be at the door?